Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English. Today we are doing part 2 in a series of videos about WH question words. So today we will look at the following question words: who, whom, whose, why, and why don't. Each question word has a specific use. So the question word who, the use is asking about which person or people, and it is acting as a subject. Whom is asking about which person or people, but it is acting as the object. Whose is asking about ownership and possession. Why is asking for a reason, and why don't, we are in fact making a suggestion. It's not really a question, we're making a suggestion. Okay, so in this video we're going to look at each of these in detail with lots of examples. So let's start here. Who. So we're asking about which person or people, and the word who is acting as a subject. So who is acting as a subject, and in terms of grammar it is the third person singular. Okay, and the meaning is, well, we're asking which person is doing something. Okay, and this is the general form. So the first example, who made this sandwich? Okay, so you can see that the word who is acting as the subject of this verb. Okay, who made this sandwich? Okay. Here we have another example. Who is singing? Okay, so who again is acting as the subject of the verb, is singing. Okay. Some more examples. So again, this is the meaning and the form. So let's look at two more examples. Who broke the plate? Okay, so broke here, this is the past simple form of the verb break. And who opened the window? Again, who is acting as the subject of the verb, and the verb is open. So opened is the past simple. Okay. Now, whom. Whom, before I explain whom, it's very, very important to realize that whom is very formal. It is not common in modern everyday English. Okay, I cannot remember the last time I heard someone say the word whom in real life. Okay, perhaps I think members of the royal family will use the word whom. If you listen to speeches by the Queen, for example, the Queen of the United Kingdom, you will hear her use the word whom. But in everyday modern English, it is very rare. Okay, so but it is important for you to understand it. So whom, well, we are asking a question where a person is the object of the verb. So this is the general form: whom followed by an auxiliary verb, followed by the subject of the verb, followed by the main verb. So you can see whom is acting as the object, and that is why it's so unusual, because we have the object of this verb. This is the object, this is the verb, so the object is right at the beginning of the question. So the object in fact is before the subject, and that is why it is so unusual, so strange in fact. Okay, So when you hear it, it is quite unusual. So here is an example. Whom will you meet tomorrow? So this means you will meet which person tomorrow? Will you meet Mark? Will you meet Jane? Okay, so as you can see, the person is the object of meet. So this is using whom, and it is very formal. But in modern English, we often use who instead of whom. Okay, so example, this is informal or more usual, more common modern English. Who will you meet tomorrow? Okay, so this is perfectly acceptable in everyday modern English, and even in an English exam, in fact. Okay, unless it is a very, very formal academic exam, this would normally be fine in an English exam. Okay, what else can we say about this? Yes, let's look at some more examples. So just a repeat of the meaning and the form. So let's look at two more examples. Whom did you call yesterday? That's formal, using whom, and we can say the same question with who. Who did you call yesterday? So again, whom here is acting as the object of the verb call, and you is the subject of the verb call. So when we use who here is now acting as the object. Okay, so usually who is the subject, but when we have this structure, who is now acting as the object. Okay. Another example, whom are you inviting to the party? So this is formal because we're using whom, and here is the informal version. Who are you inviting to the party? So the main verb is invite, inviting. The subject is you, and the object is whom. So we're asking about which person are you inviting to the party? Are you inviting Mark? Are you inviting Jane, for example? So Mark and Jane are the object, and so whom is replacing them. We're asking them which person. Okay, so this is the object. So to summarize, whom, it's important that you understand the meaning, but I doubt that you will ever need to use it. Okay, so I think 95% of the time you will use who. Whose. We use whose to ask a question about possession. We are asking who owns something, who possesses something. Whose car is that? So this means, well, who is the owner of that car? Okay. Who owns that car? Who is the owner of that car? Whose car is that? Whose hat are you wearing? Whose hat are you wearing? So this means, well, who is the owner of the hat that you are wearing? Is that your hat? No. Okay, well, whose hat is it? If it's not your hat, whose hat is it? Whose hat are you wearing? So the word that we're asking about the ownership usually comes immediately after the word whose. Whose car? Whose hat? Let's look at some more examples. Whose keys are these? So it rhymes, in fact. It's quite difficult to say. Whose keys are these? So this means, who is the owner of these keys? Okay. And this is an example in the plural. Keys. So whose keys are? Notice that we have the verb be is now in the plural. third person plural, are. And these, again, this is the plural of this. Okay, so whose keys are these? Okay, if it was just one key, we would say whose key is this? Whose key is this? But with several keys, we say whose keys are these? Okay, who is the owner of these keys? Here is a common question with the word whose when we are playing board games. So board games are things like Scrabble, Monopoly, Cluedo, chess. Okay, so here is a common question when we're playing with other people. Whose turn is it? Whose turn is it? So it means who is the next person to play? And a possible answer is, well, it's Mark's turn. Or maybe it's my turn. Okay? So very, very common question using whose. Why? Here we are asking for the reason for something. Here is the form. Why plus auxiliary verb, subject, and then the main verb. Why are you shouting? Okay, so what is the reason for you shouting? Why was he laughing? Why was he laughing? So here we have an example in the past tense. This is the past, it's the past continuous, in fact. Why was he laughing? Okay, if it was the past simple, we would say, why did he laugh? Okay, but this is the past continuous. We have an exception for the form when we're using the verb be as a main verb in the present simple and past simple. This is the form. Why followed by the be followed by subject. Why is he tired? Why are you bored? Okay, so for what is the reason for you being bored? Okay, so bored here is an adjective, and here tired is also an adjective. This is the verb be, third person singular, and here is the verb be, and this is the second person, isn't it? Second person singular. Why are you bored? Okay. Why don't? This is slightly different. It is a question, but we're also using a question to make a suggestion. So we use why don't to make a suggestion. We're transforming a question into an affirmative suggestion. Why don't, followed by the subject, followed by the verb in the present simple. So an example, why don't you join me for a drink? Why don't you join me for a drink? Okay, so we're just making a suggestion to someone. It's almost an invitation, in fact, an invitation to join me for a drink. And here is another example. Why don't we go to the beach? So here we're making a suggestion in the first person plural. Why don't we go to the beach? This is very similar meaning to let's go to the beach or shall we go to the beach? Okay, shall we go to the beach? Why don't we go to the beach? The meaning is the same. They are both making a suggestion. Okay? So that's the end of this lesson. In the next lesson, we will look at 7 more question words. So if you enjoyed this video, please share it on social media, give me a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That's the end. If you are preparing for the IELTS exam, then click here for information about our IELTS online course. And here are some other videos that I recommend.